Welcome back to part 2 of getting into do-it-yourself electronics for guitar pedals. In part 2, I'm going to cover parts and tools. Where do you get the parts? Well, locally, there's Radio Shack, and maybe you live by a Fry's Electronics. Radio Shack, you can type in the part number into radioshack.com. If they have it, you can call your local shack and maybe they'll set it on the side for you. You do pay quite a bit more when you shop locally, which is understandable. You know, you got to consider they're stocking this thing. That, I mean, who is going to be buying a 2N3904 transistor? Not too many people. So you do have to deal with the help at Radio Shack. No comment on that. Fry's Electronics has a much larger selection. It's not cheap. And they have a lot of the semiconductors, their resistors and capacitors, they got a lot of good quality stuff. But then there's the NTE. They have a huge selection of NTE parts. Now NTE is kind of a unique company. They buy old stock and components that perhaps weren't up to spec from manufacturers, and they rebrand them. They have their own part number system. So if you type in NTE cross-reference search, then that'll come up and you enter your part number and it'll tell you their part number for it. They use slightly different part numbers. Sometimes it'll be completely different. If they have, like for the transistor, they have a single transistor that covers substitute for many, so the number won't even be close. But like, I bet you if you typed in 555 timer IC, the part number for that would be NTE 555. As far as quality goes, I bought some chips from them when I kind of didn't want to wait, and it was only $2 for this chip as opposed to 50 cents from China. I never had any issues with the quality of the NTE stuff. Everything I bought from them worked. I bought 2 germanium transistors from them. They weren't great, but they weren't bad either. They were like about 200 on the leak side, and maybe 120 and 100 on the gain. So eventually I found good homes for those transistors. At $5 one would want to. In the community, I seem to notice 2 names popping up more often than other Chinese suppliers. And in this case, you do have to pay shipping, and you have to wait. Tata and FutureLec. Now, Tata seems to be the class favorite because, now this is where it gets weird. It seems like some people have issue with waiting a real long time to get their FutureLec order. Other people do not have that. Very odd. Every time I've ever ordered from FutureLec, it takes an incredibly long time. I waited over 90 days on an order, and that wasn't cool. Eventually they emailed me and said they were out of stock, which is frustrating. Anyway, but they're both unbelievably affordable. The problem with those places is they don't stock everything. I would recommend, if you're gonna, I was talking about setting goals, it might be in your best interest to pick 4 or 5 projects, and for each one put together a BOM, or bill of materials, which is the full parts list. Then maybe combine those and order everything at once. That way you have one wait time. Maybe in the meantime while you're waiting, get your breadboard going, work on that. If you have the chassis, maybe you could get the drilling and painting done, maybe. Either way, when you order from China, you are going to save some money, but you are going to pay in time. Often they will not have all of the more exotic chips. Some of the components these places won't carry. And that's where we need to order from. Find a supplier like DigiKey, Mauser, Jamico. Now on the state side of things, we do have some local suppliers. There's a guy named Steve who owns a business called Small Bear, and that's only pedal components. I can't say enough good things about Small Bear. So we want to support the home team. Steve at Small Bear. You know, when I first got started with DIY, I kind of put the word out for my family and friends. I was like, if you got any old junk electronics that you normally throw away when it comes time for spring cleaning, please don't. I would, you know, you'd really be doing me a great favor. So I ended up with a huge stack of VCRs, old radios, clock radios, just a bunch of junk. And I went through and I ended up with a couple of Ziploc baggies full of parts, and I used all that stuff. When I first got going with the breadboard, that's what I used. Now I did get the transistors from Radio Shack, and some of the resistors and capacitors. You know, sometimes the legs on the resistors will be real short, and they're so affordable, they're so cheap. You could get multi-pack, like a assortment of resistors and capacitors. That's a good way to go when you first get started. And they're easy to organize. You know, when you order a bunch of this stuff, you get these little baggies full of parts. So it's nice to try to maybe go to a, you know, like a Goodwill and find something, an old thing with drawers that pull out or a way to store. You want to kind of organize everything. Or if you can afford it, you know, buy a new storage system. They get a little pricey. I do a lot of reselling, so I was fortunate enough to find some stuff. It took a while. Now on the real, like, getting into the, like, Gilligan's Island end of things, you know, with pulling apart some VCRs and removing stuff, I noticed, and I've got to try this. This is going to be a video I'm going to do. There's a page with several, I think it's like 5 to 7 images of a guy has designed circuits. They're all fuzz circuits, fuzz, maybe a booster, overdrive, and all of the components of these circuits were removed from a CFL light bulb. If you take a knife, like, and heat it up with a propane torch, and you cut this plastic here, you do not want to crack this bulb. There's mercury in there. So if you carefully remove this circuit board, you can unsolder these parts, and according to this schematics, there is enough parts in there where you can make some fuzz boxes. So I thought, you know what, I've been saving some of these, and I'm gonna take them apart, and I'm gonna build the fluorescent, the CFL fuzz. You know, and I have to mention, you know, capacitors do store electricity, so anytime you're opening up something that plugs into mains power or AC voltage, you run the risk of electrocuting yourself, fatal shock. So you want to look into, you know, properly discharging. You don't want to, like, oh, let me plug this thing in, it doesn't work, let me get in there with my, you know. No, we don't want to do that. You don't want to plug it in, and it may still have a charge in it, so you want to look into properly discharging that circuit before you even take the chassis screws out of it. Better yet, just order the parts. They're not that much money. So, that's probably it. Maybe I'll break this up into, I'll do a separate video for tools. Parts. Like I said, I try to limit my orders. I try to put together, you know, 4+ projects and order everything at once because of the shipping. It does get expensive. And I would say that the really important thing is, like, triple check. If you've got a girlfriend, a wife, or your mom, ask a female to come in and double check your list and then what you clicked on, because almost always we end up, you know, they have 2 different versions of the chips. They have surface mount, which is tiny, and then we have DIP or through hole. You want to make sure you're getting, you know, don't mix up the K and the M. Ohms is different than K. Ohms is different than M. You know, so you need to look into that stuff before we start ordering. But I'm going to come back for part 3, which will be featuring tools. So in the meantime, peace, and keep on hacking.